Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
How are we starting this?
Same way that we start every week.
Let's go.
I'm Vinay.
I'm Ryan.
And
this is For the Creators.
So, welcome back to this week's episode of For the Creators Spotlight. This week we have an amazing guest in the studio with us, and also we're going to be discussing all the things that we've been up to this week, things that we've found really creative, and also the topic of the week, which is, are record labels still relevant in 2018? We've had a lot of you. We did a poll on our Instagrams, and we also had some of you in our comments giving your views, so we'll be exploring those a little bit later on. But what have you been up to this week, sir?
What have I been up to this week? I've been relocating my studio. So I'd moved everything out of the recording studio that I had and put it into an outhouse in the country. And it was all stuff in boxes, so kind of sorted that all out, which is really good. Other than that, same old, writing music, editing.
Exciting times.
Yeah, how about you?
For me, it was a bit of the same, actually. This weekend's supposed to be really interesting, though. Supposed to be going to see Big Nasty performing at Shazam. Also going to be taking in the Afro Hair and Beauty show as well.
Nice.
But this past week, just because I know that I've got those things coming up, I've just been trying to bang out the work. I was really disappointed that I didn't get to attend The Great Escape.
What's The Great Escape for people?
That is a BBC festival that was put on in Brighton. Had the likes of Miss Banks and Lowski, other performers there, I think. Our film, the guy who normally does our filming, Will actually attended. I'm so pissed I didn't get to go because it looked live, and our guest Komali went, so Komali can give us a little update on what happened there.
Komali, who's our guest today.
Yeah.
No, it looked really good, and there was some good panels that could have learnt from.
Yeah, I was supposed to attend the Love, Music, Hate, Racism panel. I was invited to that one, but unfortunately I didn't get to attend. We're hoping to have Lewis, one of the ladies from Love, Music, Hate, Racism, on the show at some point. So that should be really interesting. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to attend some more events in the summer. So
with your support, we can attend these events. I'm sure we will, definitely.
Definitely. Yeah, the more that we do this, the more people we network and get introduced to, the more events we're going to be taking in and bringing you with us. So yeah,
exactly.
It's been a good week. So also out today is our interview with True Tiger, and it's a good one. We take you back through the origins of garage and grime, all the way up to today, and so much good advice in there. He dropped so many gems. Like, we go back through the interviews and we write down like the highlights so we can share it online, and it was a hard task. I went back through and I was transcribing it, right? And I was just like, oh my God, oh yes, oh. And literally, guys, I literally wrote down every single thing he said in the interview. I wanted to put it as like a video or like a little meme. Or, like, it was amazing. I feel like I was taking down a trip down memory lane, like from pirate radio, jungle, like there's everything in that interview, and you need to check it out. It's one of those interviews that it's just so nostalgic, and it's going to take you way back, but in a good way. So. Definitely.
And I learned a lot just about the art world.
That's true.
I learned a lot about that, which is what I was curious about, because I knew that he kind of delved into that, but I didn't know how deep, and it's just mad. Like, I learned a lot from that interview. What was your main takeaway?
So my main takeaway from the interview is something that he kept repeating throughout the interview, this idea of when you start something to just really stick to it, but also be believe in yourself, because not everyone's gonna get it, and it's important to know that, because if you're trying to be like everybody else, then you lose your authenticity. The whole point of, being an innovator, being someone different, is to try new things. And I think that we see that a lot in the industry now, because especially with this Afro bashment sort of vibe that's going on, it's like, for the most part, I can't even tell you that all of the artists at the moment are Kojo fans of Jay Huss to me. That's how bad it is. So I think that we're at that point now where, like, before everyone used to copy the Americans, I feel like
the UK artists are copying the UK artists and then everyone else is sounding the same.
Yes.
And that's kind of something he also touched on in the interview. So yeah, like the moral of the story is to, if you want to do something, no matter how big or how small, to do it your way, but also stick to what you're doing as well.
Yeah, I definitely got that as well. Sticking to your guns. But also the other thing I picked up on was to respect the craft that you're working on. Respect the art, and make decisions out of the goodness of the art, not so you get more likes or followers, or so you can drop a single every week because that's what everyone else is doing. It's doing what's, in music terms, what's best for the song.
Definitely.
And that is what will get you everything else that you want. He said about Dizzy Rascal saying to him that, look, just focus on the music.
Yeah.
Focus on the songs and everything else will come.
It kind of ties into what we were saying to Darnell a couple of weeks ago. Do you
Exactly,
remember when we had
that's
Darnell
right.
on? Because Darnell, is the film director, and he's putting out his work and he's trying to also get into the music industry. And we said to him, you know what? Stick to what you're doing and really, 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 really get good at being like a film director, and then everything else will come. And that's the message that came out of the interview with True Tiger as well.
Absolutely. So definitely, if you haven't heard that one, go back and listen to that one. I say that every week. But yeah, definitely go back and listen to that. I'm sure you're going to get something out of it in whatever you're doing.
Definitely. It was also cool when you started speaking about art, like you mentioned, especially people like Banksy. And then he touched a lot on branding as well. And that really stood out for me. He was talking about
Cult branding.
like Snoop Dogg, and then he was talking about just the way how Banksy approaches his art.
Yeah, and timing.
And the timing.
Yeah.
And also the art of repetition.
Yes.
And there was there was just so many gems in this interview. So if you're into art, if you're into grime, you need to check it out.
Yeah, especially, like British culture. Definitely check it out. If you're curious about that, if you don't know about what's going on over here and how it's got to where it is at the moment, definitely listen to this and you'll be up to speed in an hour and a half.
Yeah, so that brings us nicely to introducing our guest.
Our
of the
guest.
day.
As you know, every week we have a spotlight guest, and today we are spotlighting Komali.
Hey, drum roll!
We had the applause enough.
Hi everyone.
How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you guys?
Really good.
Really
Glad to have you.
good.
Oh, thanks for having me. Even though I sound a little worse for wear because I've been at the Great Escape for the last 3 days, so I'm a little bit like.
You got the Great Escape hangover.
Yeah,
The great
no,
hangover.
I feel good,
I
but my
don't-
voice says otherwise.
I don't feel sorry for it, guys. Just saying. I'm hating. That should have been me. I don't want to have a voice too. Yeah, so what have you been up to this week, madam, apart from, losing your voice and everything?
The main part of it was Great Escape. I would say that's been the highlight of my week. It's the first time I've been, actually.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, it was fun. I had a really good time. It's just a really nice way to see lots of acts all in one place, all at the same time. Some that, already established, already signed, alongside completely new acts from abroad, like New Zealand, Australia,
dope.
America, as well as UK acts that you might not have, they're not doing loads of live dates. So it's quite nice to, all at once. Do you know what I mean? It's a nice melting pot.
Nice.
It's really good.
Because
And it
I
was good
wasn't
weather
even
too.
really aware about. I mean, I've been in music for ages, but I don't really know what Great Escape is.
Yeah, it's pretty new. I wouldn't. It's not like Glastonbury. It hasn't been going for years and years and years and years. But I think it's just it's quite a cool concept because it's not a festival like Wireless is, where it's just stages in one park, or do you know what I mean? It's spread across the town of Brighton. So it gets
it's
lots
not
of venues involved, like bars.
dope.
It's really cool. It's just a good way to inject a little bit of life into the city. Not because Brighton needs more life. It's pretty buzzy by itself. It is cool. It's really nice, and you get to see all the different venues, and it's quite cool moving around. It's tiring, not gonna lie. The walk-in is a lot, but it's worth it. It's nice. And
Yeah, because I was down in
cute town.
Brighton, was it about 3 weeks ago for the Brighton Music
Yeah, for the
Festival
music
as
oh
well?
yeah, how was that?
So that was good. I feel like we didn't get as much out of it as we could because we only stayed there for a few hours.
Yeah,
Back in
we're
the-
back.
We're back.
Jeez, if it can go wrong, it will. Creators.
Testing you.
Oh man, and
It's all part of it.
why always me? I just changed the batteries and it just locked off on us. But anyway, where were we? We were talking about The Great Escape.
Yeah. It's just fun. It's a really cool idea. I think in London, we're very spread out. So I don't know if we could do it all across the city. I think it would have to be like a central Shoreditch thing. Or, you know what I mean? Like a little bit more contained. But it's nice to...
Also,
just
you're
be a
by
bit-
the seaside.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
that's
Fish and
nice.
chips.
Yeah.
You're making me
Meal.
jealous now.
No, it was really good. And the weather was actually lovely. It wasn't hot, but it was sunny, which is something. And everyone told me that it rained last year. So,
Oh, right.
yeah, because I would not have been about that life. I'm not into that at all.
Exactly. So in what capacity were you visiting the festival?
So I have just started doing A&R for Parlophone Records,
Nice.
which is under Warner Music. So literally I've been there a month now. And before that I was at Virgin doing TV promo. So it's a completely different step for me. But yeah, it's perfect as an A&R because you've got, like I said, a multitude of artists to see, and some that, you know, don't have regular live dates that, you know, it's like all at once. And it's, you know, everyone's open to network and chat, which is a little bit easier somewhere like The Great Escape than it is if they were playing, you know, at a normal
Because
gig.
they'll be probably behind the scenes.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and it's harder to like get to people, but everyone, you know, everyone's kind of there for that. It's great networking and fun at the same time. And just as a lover of live music, it's wicked to have that in abundance for like 3 days straight. It's crazy. And yeah, and seeing your favorite artists as well as some like that you've never ever heard before. Do you know what I mean? Like I saw this really cool girl called Dizzy Faye. She's from California. It's like kind of electro pop.
Okay.
But she was wicked. Like she was really cool, and she had like bright yellow braids. Like neon braids. And the venue that we were in had UV lighting.
Oh,
So it was sick. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just like really, just little things, but it's really nice to see live music because other than the big gigs that people do, it's not, you know, it's not always around like that. So yeah, I feel very spoiled after the 3 days. I really enjoyed it. It was really good.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's good.
And you also run a fashion label.
I do. I run a clothing brand called King's Ransom London. I started that in 2013 with my best friend Megan. Shout out
Nice.
Megan in Marbella right now, living her best. So we met at school, literally first day of school, and
Nice.
we've been best friends since then. And then, yeah, we started it when we were 18, 19. So yeah, it's a streetwear brand, essentially. So tees, sweatshirts, caps, hoodies, bags, jackets. We've got a swimwear line as well.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, you know what? It's just really, we just started it because we had a shared passion, shared drive, and she wanted to actually set up an online magazine. And I was making clothes for my friends. Like I would
So
make
you actually
like sweatshirts and
make
stuff.
them as well.
Yeah, I'm not as
Dope.
good as I should be at literally like sewing everything, but it was something that I was just dabbling with, and you know, just literally making t-shirts and dresses and sweatshirts for like, yeah, my friends.
So is everything
and-
handmade or?
It's
or you
not
ma-
now, but we design it all. So like the standard stuff like the tees, we don't, you know, design ourselves. We buy those, but the jacket I'm wearing today, actually, our longline bombers are designed by us.
Nice.
Yeah, and we, you know, we source everything when we can in the UK,
Oh, that's
make
good.
it in the UK. It's a very London-centric brand. And yeah, the ethos behind it, the term King's Ransom means a large sum of money. So you might often hear it as in, oh, that's going to cost you a king's ransom. So it means it's worth a lot. And
Does that
we
mean
kind
that
of-
your price range is
it's not. It's
very
very
high?
accessible. No, it's actually very accessible. But it was just for us. It just meant there's different ways you can interpret it. So, you know, you can think of it literally. You're worth a large sum of money. Like, you know, in yourself, that's what you aspire to achieve in life. Or you can take it as a king's ransom is something of high worth and high value, and that's how you should look at yourself and carry yourself, and the kind of mindset you apply to what you do. And we're both super driven, and the people, when we started the brand, everybody that we kind of got involved, we did a casting call for our first campaign, and the people that we were seeing, like, we were just looking for models, but it was crazy. Like, the people that we were meeting, they were like, one was training to be in the Olympics,
Oh wow.
Oh,
one
dope.
was like she's gorgeous. Like, she's modeling professionally now, but she hadn't at the time. She was only 17, I think. And she was like, I don't want to model. I just want to be a mathematician. Like, her goal in life is to find like a mathematical
Like a theory.
equation, like Pythagoras, like that. That's like
really
her thing.
I love
that. So just like really amazing people that were starting out really at the same time as us. Some of them are still like younger than us, and they're still just about to peak and be amazing and be discovered in whatever they're doing. But it wasn't just, like, I just want to model, I just do music. It was such a plethora of goals and ambitions, and we'd already chosen the name and everything, but it was like, whoa, like, this is so mad. Like, this is everything like everything that we've set this up to stand for and do. All these people that also think this way are here.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's
and we just did an online casting call, do you know what I mean? So it was really, it was mad. It really like kind of galvanized us to carry on with it, because we felt like, wow, like maybe we're onto a really good thing here.
Yeah, actually stand for something.
Yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, I'm really proud of that. So I, like I said, started that when I was 19. I was still at uni at the time, and I worked full time in uni as well as a receptionist. Don't ask how I did that. I look back now, I just think, what are you doing? So I've always done it as my side hustle, really. But it's one of those things that's really taught me how to balance my workload, because I've always worked alongside it or had uni. Do you know what I mean? I've never just had the pleasure of working on King's Ransom quite yet, but I'm happy with that, because the jobs that I've had so far, I've been picking up skills that I can really apply to the brand. Yeah, and just like things that I picked up along the way that makes me better at running my company. And the same for Megan. Like, Megan, she's worked in film and advertising so far, so she's picked up like the way that she applies things and the things that she knows. It's unrivaled, really, and we're the only, as far as I know, like, I can stand corrected, but we're the only female-run streetwear brand in the UK, as far as no one else has come to take our crown. So yeah, but it's really it's just something that I love doing. I love having something that's just mine, and it's when we all have our goals and things that we want to do full time, but you got to pay the bills in the meantime. And it's so nice, like, if you have a bad day at work or whatever, or your boss is pissing you off, and it's like, you know what, it's cool, because I've got this whole thing that's just mine, and you can't tell me that I'm not doing it right or good enough, or it's just completely independent of everything and everyone. And I think I'd advise anyone, if they can, to have not necessarily a business, but just something that makes them happy and an outlet, especially as a creator.
Your own.
Yes,
absolutely,
100%. It's good.
So
for
where
the soul.
can we find King Ransom?
We sell online mostly. We do pop up throughout the year, but we're always online, so you can visit the website at www.kingsransomlondon.co.uk.
And socials?
And the socials are at kingsransom_LDN on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Just Google it, you'll find us.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Cool. So, I mean, we'll catch up more about that afterwards. Right now, we're going to discuss what the most creative thing we've seen this week.
Who's going to go?
Yeah, who's going to go?
I don't mind going, actually.
Yeah. I know what mine is.
Hopefully it's not what mine is.
It's going to be the same.
I was just thinking that. I was like, what if we all have the same one?
It's going to be the
But that
same.
would be interesting. Obviously, mine is Laurel.
I knew it.
And Yanni.
I knew it.
Yeah, so I don't know if you haven't seen it, it's actually up on our Instagram at the minute. And basically it's this robot who's saying Yanni, even though some people think it's saying Laurel.
It says Laurel, but yeah.
It's saying Yanni.
I haven't actually listened to it. I've just seen everyone talking about it. I just thought, you know what, I can't get drawn in. It's like the blue dress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically that.
No, I was just
the
like,
audio
can't.
version of the
blue
blue or
dress.
black dress.
It's crazy because, and do you know what, after a while, like, I started to hear Laurel. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
But
That's
you know what
crazy.
it is? So it's two audio files placed on top of each other. And if you slow down the pitch, like, it will go like Laurel. And then you start to hear either Yanni or Laurel. It's just like an
But it's
like an audio
strange because
trick.
it's like so pronounced. It sounds like saying Yanny, and then it sounds like it's saying Laurel. And obviously, they're two like different sounds.
Yeah,
Yan
completely.
And
Yeah.
Laurel are like two completely different things. So like, and then everyone's adamant that no, that's what I heard. You must be going crazy. Like there were some people saying I've turned my phone upside down. I've tried all kind of different things. I was literally hearing the same thing. So.
It's crazy the way that works because you could be next to each other and you hear one thing and I hear a different thing, but it's just the way the ear canal works and all that. It's mad, just in terms of how we hear pitch.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because you could literally be watching or hearing the same thing, but not hearing the same thing.
So wild.
Mad,
It's
isn't it?
spooky because because it really made me start thinking about music and all the things that we listen to. Like, imagine if there's like hidden messages and things like that in there.
They said that about that 3-6 Mafia tune. Do you remember? That they were saying, what? Do you remember
No.
Stay Fly? Is that the name of the song?
Because they usually say like when you play songs
If
back,
you play
they
it
say
backwards, it's
something
saying
completely
some
different.
devil
okay,
worshipping
yeah,
shit. I don't know.
Like, I'm going to kill you.
Come on. Yeah, that's crazy. But you just think it's so funny that like advertising companies spend so much money on like a campaign, and then something like that goes viral, and you couldn't pay, like you can't pay someone,
no.
you can't
Yeah.
even predict that that's going to take off on social media the way that it does. It's crazy.
It was
It's a beautiful
crazy.
thing, really.
But I think
Yeah.
that's just how it is, and it's even like with things like the podcast. It's like I feel like, and that's why it's better to be authentic, because sometimes obviously and one of the things I've tried not to do is try not to listen to too many other podcasts, because I feel like sometimes when you do that, you end up thinking, oh, it must be done that way. So then you try and fit yourself into a box.
Yeah.
And then obviously because another video goes viral or another podcast goes viral for a particular reason, then you subconsciously end up doing the same things that they're doing. And I feel like it's going to be probably one of the episodes that we probably didn't even think much about that's going to go viral and really help the show to blow. So I feel like in everything in life, you just have to just keep going and,
run
as
your
True
own
Tiger
race.
was saying, just be as authentic
Absolutely.
as possible.
I agree.
Absolutely. So
What was yours?
so mine was the same kind of thing, but there was another one, and I don't know if you saw it.
You sent it to me, but I didn't get a chance to read it.
Seriously. So this one was basically, it's a little toy. It's a video. It's a toy. In fact, I'll extract the audio and I'll put it in this when I edit it.
Okay, cool.
And I press it and it goes like brainstorm. But if you change the word you think of, so basically you either hear brainstorm or thread needle. Right, brainstorm has got 2
Sway.
syllables. Thread needle's got 3 syllables. And I'm telling you, you listen to it, you change what you think, and you hear something completely different.
Change what you think in terms
What do you
of
mean? Just
thinking
think of a
those
random
2
word in your
things,
head?
or
No,
just,
no, so,
just
those
you have
2
to think
things. Yeah, those 2
brainstorm
things.
or thread needle.
Yeah, which is nuts. Like when you do it,
That's so crazy.
it is mad. It is mad. So for me, that was the most creative thing. Like just how that works in your ear, in your brain. Like just goes to show we can literally
But
hear and see different things.
It's like, I think because for example, I was looking up visual merchandising today, and even down to the way how things look, where things are positioned, the smells, all these different things. Because sometimes I go into the shops, right, and I've got no intention of buying anything, and you're in there and you feel like,
The
I
sudden
have to
urge.
buy it. Like, I need it now.
Yeah.
And then you get home and then you throw it down in your bedroom. You probably don't even wear it for about 5 months. But in that moment, you just felt
needed
like,
it.
I don't know if it's the lighting or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's something in these shops, I'm telling you, that they draw you in. And I think it's the same thing that they use on social media as well. It's something to bring out that addictive, like it brings out your addictive
Like the
nature.
I need
like
it.
you need to check it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason why you should feel like you have to check you literally check your phone 5 minutes ago, and then you pick up your phone again for no reason. And sometimes I find myself looking at the same flipping posts over and over again. I'm like, why are you doing this?
We're all being conned because they spend millions, maybe billions, on getting us to be addicted to these things. You know, that's where it's
And
about for
it's
them.
like what artificial intelligence is about. It just continuously gets better and better and better.
It learns, exactly.
Yeah, so it's just constantly learning about, you know, us and how we behave and interact with these things.
Absolutely.
So what was yours, darling?
I think it was quite a hard question, but what I did see, I don't know if you guys know GWAP magazine.
GUAP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's run by the lovely Ibrahim Kamara. So it's an online magazine. It's great. It's wicked. They do a lot of video. I think they're the first online video magazine.
Yeah, I think this has come up.
They're really great.
The name was
come up.
familiar.
Honestly, you should shout Ibrahim. He's great. But I saw a feature that he did on this social marketing agency called Vamp. So it's run by these 3 black women, super young. I think they're all 24, and they have carved out a niche for themselves, connecting brands and like influencers and bloggers with like to do marketing where there's kind of been a gap in the market where a lot of non-black and ethnic minority bloggers are kind of getting overlooked for those jobs with the Nikes and the pretty little things and misguided and stuff.
Right.
And also just not having that same access to those
Non-black
bloggers.
or black?
Would you say that again?
So I think you said, is it non-black or the black models?
So Vamp is connecting black minority ethnic bloggers, influencers with those brands where they have often been overlooked.
Yeah.
So they did the Black Panther premiere, like connecting people to do coverage and stuff like that.
Is that where Oprah and that? Is that the same agency that had like Oprah and all of that on when they came over, and Ava?
Yeah, probably. And they did A Wrinkle in Time premiere as well.
That's it, yeah.
So working with huge
I've
brands
seen
like
those,
Disney.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
wow.
really amazing. So I watched a little video that they did. It's a short one, so really, you know, easy to watch, but just talking about what they do. And I thought it was really interesting because I know a lot of bloggers who are struggling a little bit to make those connections with those brands, and those brands are struggling to make those connections with the bloggers because they don't know quite how, for whatever reason, to make it work with, you know, people they're not used to working with in that capacity. It's easier for them to go for, you know, a white YouTuber maybe because they're more used to that, and it's just about opening those doors, which I think is really important in all of these creative industries, and having people in place that can connect the dots between those two, you know, agencies. So I thought it was a really, really interesting concept.
Do you
They're
think
called
Black
Vamp.
Panther helped with that? Because now they see that obviously there is an industry for black films and black
I
content
think
in
it
general.
possibly did, but I don't think it's the only thing. I think it's part of the picture. Obviously, it was a huge success this year, and I'm sure it's played a big part. But I think big companies are cottoning on to how valuable young people are, as well as black and minority ethnic people. Like we make up a big part of the UK, big enough and growing, and yeah, our voices have been overlooked, but for the most part, we are trendsetters and we are defining culture. And it's important for us to be in those conversations rather than a huge advertising agency just going, oh yeah, I saw this thing on YouTube or I saw this thing on Twitter. We're going to take it and not involve those voices.
Yeah.
And then it comes out wrong because it's not authentic. It's not.
I can't remember.
They haven't run it past anyone to check if this is acceptable. Is it cool? Does it work? And it's really important that there's someone, you know, on the ground that can really understand both sides of the coin.
Do you remember? I can't remember the name of this girl. She was just a random girl online. The girl who came up with On Fleek. Do you remember?
Yeah,
She was up on Viva and she came up with On Fleek, and then now it's a
Was
big
it on
thing.
Vine?
On Vine, probably.
Yeah.
And now it's a big thing, but she's never received any recognition for it. And all these brands have used it and overused it. So I feel like it's really important for us to get out there. And it's funny because I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk this week, and he was saying something along the same lines. He was basically saying, like, if you want to see where the trends are, go to Atlanta. Because if they start something in Atlanta now, like guaranteed, like 5 years down the line, like the white households will be doing it as well.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like everything kind of starts not being, you know, biased, but most things start in the urban or what's considered to be urban. No one wants to touch it, but then it eventually becomes mainstream, and then we get no credit for it. So
always the way. But yeah, so I thought that was really interesting concept, and I think they're going to do really well because I think it's definitely needed in the market. So I thought it was really cool. And they were all girls and they're super young and they quit their jobs. Do you know what I mean? It was like proper...
Yeah,
I was inspired by it. I thought it was really, really interesting.
Definitely. I've definitely found a niche.
Yeah.
And
so they're called
connecting the dots.
I don't know them at all. I literally just saw it. So yeah,
oh, good.
Shout out to you lot.
Yeah, it's random because I came across, I think it's Vamp, because I remember seeing when Ava came over and Oprah, especially for the Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah.
And they had this panel and there was loads of cool people there like Kojo and things like that. They were all there and I was thinking, who's this group? But I never really looked into it beyond that. It just popped up on my Instagram one day.
That's amazing. Cool. That's amazing. I'm just glad to hear that there's more representation just across the board in different rooms, because like we were discussing the other day when we met up, just having certain faces and even genders in the conversation and in the room makes people think different and ask different questions, which therefore changes the end result, which is what we all want. It needs to be fair representation. So it's just good to see, man. Good to see that there's now even like companies being built to connect the dots between what's happening online and an agency between a brand and what's happening online. So that's really good.
And just a way to like avoid people being exploited in those ways, because that, like you said, has been happening. It's so commonplace, and people not getting the credit or payment that they deserve for their ideas and concepts and their hard work. So I think, I just saw that and I thought, wow, that's really like, it's really important, I think. So I wish them
it's kind of one of the
best of luck.
Of being online as well, because it's just once you put it out there, it's out there, isn't it? And you don't really get any credit for it. But I think people are a lot wiser now, and the whole social influencer thing is really big at the moment. Well, I don't even think it's just at the moment. It's going to continue to get a lot bigger. So
absolutely, I think people's perception of like a celebrity has changed.
And try to create an agency where people would actually benefit from their ideas and their creative currency. What Kanye was referring to a few weeks back.
Oh God.
Back in Spotlight episode 1.
What was that?
Basically, let's not go there.
Let's not. We don't even have the time to go there today.
That's really cool.
So, by the way, guys, it is actually Biggie Smalls' birthday today.
Hey.
Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah, so happy birthday to the legend.
Yes.
Who never dies. Also, one of the cool things that I found out today, let me get the right name. Bear with me, guys. There's also a film that's going to be coming out called City of Lies. It's coming out on the 7th of September. I'm not sure if that'll be in the UK, but it will probably be in America. And it's featuring Johnny Depp and Forest Whitaker. And basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out who killed Biggie Smalls. There was a detective who was on the case, the LAPD. His name was Russell Paul. So Johnny Depp's actually playing his character, and then Forest Whitaker's playing a journalist who was covering the story at the time.
Interesting.
So the feedback so far on it is that it's going to be really good. So that's something I think I'm definitely going to be checking out and coming back here to tell you more about it. So
well, hopefully we get invited to the premiere.
Vamp, if you got any hookups.
Vamp. If anyone knows the Vamp
know someone
ladies,
that knows someone, we want to be in that panel too, Vamp.
For real, man. For real. So our topic of the week, we stuck it up on our Instagrams and we ran a poll, and the topic is, are record labels still relevant in 2018? And what were the results?
Yeah, it was kind of 50-50 for the most part. I think some people were saying yes, they are relevant, and some were saying no, they're not. I'll just read out some of the feedback that we received. Yvonne said that yes, but not essential. So that's saying yes, record labels are still relevant, but they're not essential. It's a matter of fame versus creative freedom these days, and it depends on what an artist sees as important. We also had Diane that said, I think a lot of artists are understanding how the independent route is more important as they remain authentic to their music without big shot execs watering it down. And then we also had, just bear with me, we had G Rhythm on Instagram saying, first, let me rephrase the question. So he changed the whole question. He's like, are companies still relevant in 2018? Because anyone can start a business. Just because an artist can run their own indie label doesn't mean they all want to, know how to, or have the desire to learn how to. I think record labels are still relevant to artists who need label services. However, to stay relevant beyond 2018, labels need to evolve their business model because the industry is evolving.
Okay.
So how do you guys feel?
Shall I jump in? I feel the urge.
Yeah, go for it. Go on.
So I feel that record labels are relevant because our perception of a major label is this massive company, which they are, but that massive company had to start off as a small company at one point, as an independent company at one point. It started by probably one or two founders, and is then either been invested in or been absorbed by a larger company, making it a major label. So for me, it's just a bunch of independent labels that have a different perception on it. And whether you're doing it on your own or you're doing it with a company that you're quote unquote signed to, it's all about the team that you're working with. It's just the people that you want to work with and the resources that you're able to use. So you could have
just
all
to
of,
jump
go
in
on.
there, because the way how you've answered the question just made me think, are you classing record labels as just the big record labels? Because technically an independent label is also a record label. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, for me, it's about the team and the resources. So I could work with an independent label that has technically more resources for me as an artist than it would a massive perceived label that has loads of artists on their books. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's all about the team, resources, and the end result, and the satisfaction you get out of working along the journey, because it is a long journey, and you can sign to an independent company that stifles you creatively. Everyone thinks you go to a major label and that's it. I just think it's about the people you work with, and you do have to do that screening process beforehand, as much as you can.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. I think that somewhere along the way, like, being signed became really uncool and not a cool thing to talk about. But I think it came from a group of people somewhere who didn't really know that much. They probably never worked in music before. And suddenly it's like, oh no, like I'm independent. And there's artists now that are saying they're independent, but they have the backing of a major label.
Yeah.
And I don't see a problem with it. I think that record labels are important because it amplifies what you're doing as an artist, and there's resources that you can plug into that you wouldn't have access to otherwise, and expertise, and all of those things that not everybody is just born into knowing. Like, you can have a talent and not have any clue about music business at all, and you need that support. But I think you have to be very clear in whatever you're doing, whether it is independent, if it's a distribution deal, whatever it is, you need to be very clear about what you want out of it. I don't think you should sign to say, oh yeah, I'm with Universal, I'm with Sony, I'm with Warner. Do you know what I mean? I think it should be very specific, and you need people around you that have a focused plan for you, because if you go into a situation like that, especially for a major label, and you're not focused, there's so many opinions that along the way you can get lost, and the message that you set out to convey can get skewed, and that's not what you want. So I think the important thing is working out what works for you, and if you really need a deal. And people think, oh, you're just signing your life away, but there's so many different types of deals that you can get that completely benefit you. And it could be like single deals are super popular. Like, you could do a free single deal, and that offers you a level of exposure that you wouldn't have got by yourself. That's like, a foot in the door at Spotify and Deezer and Apple Music, like all these things that you just don't have the network by yourself. But you go there, they offer that to you. And yeah, make sure that you challenge. As an artist, I would say to any artist out there, like, make sure you're not scared to challenge people when they've approached you. Just be like, yeah, like, what can you do for me? And make sure you understand implicitly what they're offering you, and make sure they uphold those promises, and you go from there.
Yeah, I think it's also a thing where I think what people are mixing up here is this whole concept of creative freedom. And I think what people have associated with record labels is that if you're signed to a record label, you no longer have,
you don't have that
creative freedom. And I think it's because most people sometimes as well are going into it, like you said, they're not informed about the industry. I think it's down to the individual to make sure that they know as much as possible, and in fact they know their why. Why are you doing this? Like, what makes you unique? What do you stand for, and what won't you accept? Because so what True Tiger was referring to, you know, at the start of grime and things like that, it was very much where it was, oh, you had to get on the Radio 1 playlist, or if, you know, you were on a label and say Ryan and I on the same label, Ryan's hot at the moment, Ryan needs to jump on my track when he may not necessarily be the right fit for it. So I think what we're blurring here is not necessarily the whole issue of having a label. It's more about whether you actually understand who you are as an artist, what you will and won't accept.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's outside of that creative side of things, it's also looking into, you know, were record labels too slow in terms of not moving with the curve, you know,
Absolutely.
in terms of like the digital arena and things
100%.
like that.
That's well evidenced.
I think that's why people are saying, are they actually relevant? And obviously the internet provides level playing field as well now as well.
Sure.
So you don't necessarily, as much as I understand your point about, you know, getting into Spotify and things like that, if you make enough noise on the internet, they will come to you.
There is that
to a
element
certain
as well,
extent
yeah.
as well. So I think the argument is so multi-layered.
No, I agree, but like, if you're a kid in your bedroom, you're 15, and you've written a song and you've recorded yourself doing it, and it goes viral, even if all those people come to you and you're making that noise, what do you do next?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Definitely.
That's the real thing, because cool, I've got exposure now, but it doesn't mean that I'm now a mastermind of my career and I know exactly how to navigate this. Like, you don't, and it's very individual to each person. And even saying that, you could have a great team around you that can help you with those next steps, or you might not. And if you're doing it in your bedroom, not knowing how that's going to connect with millions of people, the chances are that you probably don't. And because then you're at a stage where you didn't know this was going to happen, you're attracting a different type of person now. Whereas if you're an artist that has been building and building and building, and people have been organically jumping on board, then you've kind of got a fan base. And, you know, if you do have a manager, it's because they proper believed in you before it was like proven in terms of stats and views and numbers.
I've always said that myself, in terms of like, I've always said, as an artist, it's actually in your favor not to blow too quickly. I think in anything that you do, even me as an entrepreneur going through it at the moment, I feel like it's so much better when you do things organically. It's even with the podcast. We've had people in our ear saying, you know, oh, if you come, I can hook you up with this person and that person. And in the end, it's actually worked out better for us to do it organically, because we're learning all of the little things along the way.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's almost like you
and
can't
not
run
in front of an
you
audience.
can't run before
of-
you walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's an issue that a lot of artists are facing now, because they have these mega hits that out of nowhere, because it blows on YouTube. And it's great. Obviously, that's amazing springboard for any young artist. But the expectations are so high. And after that, it's like, shit, what do I do now?
Right.
And they're making those mistakes in front of so many people.
It's the same stage.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as much, it's two sides of the same coin. As
Yeah.
much as the exposure is amazing, the fact that you can go on YouTube and completely change your life with your art, it is like, shit, okay, cool, I didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
So now
What
I've
now?
got to, now I've got to go on, and all these people are watching and going, oh, is this a one-hit wonder? Are you really that good? Do you know what I mean? And people
And
are ready
it's-
to tear you down before
That's
you've
the thing.
even... And it's
Definitely.
difficult, and
Yeah.
everyone's got an opinion. They can come directly to you on Twitter. You
And they
can
do.
see it all, and
Yeah.
there's less protection in this day
I
and
think
age.
it's
so.
because we're in the micro generation as well. It's like, it goes back to what we were saying last week. I have little cousins and stuff now who don't even want to go to university or anything like that. They just want to be YouTube stars. But I think what people miss about university is university teaches you patience. That's one of the main things that I got out of university. Being able to stick to something for 3 years and completing it, that gives you some life skills that you wouldn't learn just by going on YouTube and doing things, because you're getting things so quickly. And again, maybe I'm old school, but what comes quick usually goes just as quickly as well. So I totally agree with everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get into the music industry, but once you get in here, it's a dog game, and you know there's no prisoners, and people online are so vicious these days as well.
That's the thing. Like when you put something out, you're technically throwing yourself into like a coliseum.
Yeah,
You've got everyone looking around, and
Yeah.
it's like you perform or you die.
yeah,
Unfortunately, that's the world you go into, and it's a great time where we can voluntarily walk into the coliseum and smash it,
yeah.
and like.
And you can duck out quickly.
Yeah, that's the thing.
If you want to, you can.
You can. But I think what happens, like you said, people are kind of ushered in, without knowing what the upside and the downsides can be. So I think, in terms of like bringing it back to the question, in terms of relevance, I think labels even more so, if they could get that message out for like protection of an artist or a creative, that brings in even more relevance. Do you know what I mean?
I also think it's a thing of it's like with anything. If you study marketing or anything like that, we're at a point now where I feel like the labels have a responsibility as well. They should be helping these young artists by giving them information. There's a lot of things that these artists don't know about. Like, for example, when we had Darnell in, didn't even understand the whole concept of royalties and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's even something I'd like to do with my business, is really try and provide like courses or workshops or things like that where you invite people down and have these conversations, because I find with creatives, like, they just want to create.
Yeah.
And when you're creative, you don't think about the business side. They don't see their music as a product. They see it as, you know, I've made this really dope track. It's even like what you were saying during the interview, like when you were speaking to Will, like you just wanted your friends to hear it.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Then like, it's dope, and that's what you want. Like, they're probably not even thinking, like, obviously you want your music to go out there and be really big, but in the first instance, you just want a few people to listen to it. It's like with anything that you do creatively, like, I remember when I built my first website, and I was like, I built a website, like, look at it. But then as you go through it, you realize, there's a little bit more to it. There's SEO, there's this, there's that. And I feel like it's the same thing with the music industry. They're just so excited that they've created something that's good and people actually like it, that they don't think about the business of music.
And also the next step, like once you're in music, you'll realize quickly that it's not about what you've done or what you are doing. It's always about what's coming next. It's always about what's coming next, and it's about
sustain this energy and hype.
Exactly, and that's ultimately how you're going to get people to jump on your bandwagon, because if you've got a lot of stuff coming next, people have reason to invest into you. So I think my answer to the question is, yeah, they are relevant, because it's all about maintenance. It's all about maintaining that level of creativity, so you can like keep on doing what you're doing and connecting with the fans and building that so it becomes global.
Yeah, and I think like even questioning the relevance of an institution like a record label, I think just kind of reflects society's shift into being so instantaneous and wanting everything now. It's just like, I don't need this record label because I can just go on YouTube and I don't need it. It's just like, no, like we can't disregard years of history and expertise and people that have really been doing it. Don't get me wrong, like a lot of these creative industries have only, you know, for a long time it was like, we're all just having a great time. There's loads of money flying about. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't as serious, you could say.
They did
the
take
80s.
the piss for a very long time.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And everyone's
No
working
joke
it
about
out. But still, regardless, even when you are, it's like, you know, we're all having fun, but you learn things along the way. Do you know what I mean? And I think that it's important for young people to appreciate what's come before them, to know how they're going to do it better. Not because record labels are faultless or they've always been perfect, they're far from. But it's really important for us to know what they do offer and make an informed decision, not just go, later I can just go on or do it myself. Like it's not all about that. And just working in one, I can see the pros and cons. And I do think they have taken too long on certain things, and they didn't, you know, for example, when the internet came in, everybody thought that, you know, Napster was going to go away and LimeWire was going to go away. It's like, no, this has completely changed your business and how much money you guys can make. So they should have adapted quicker. But, you know, they were doing so well. It was arrogance. It was, you know, hoping for the best and burying everyone burying their head in the sand. But I feel like they are making strides to, you know, just embrace the changes. It is going to take time, and it's not something that will happen overnight. But I think that it's definitely, you can't question relevance. What you can question is how they approach things, especially the moment that British music is having with the spotlight on black artists. I think it's very important to have people working in those labels that have a certain frame of reference rather than people who've never listened to this kind of music before.
Yes.
And can sometimes lump it in altogether and not give it the due care it deserves. And for me, it's music that I grew up on and I love and I've got a passion for. And, you know, I've got friends and family that are doing it, like literally have been doing it for years and years and years. And it's like, oh shit, like I'm getting asked to go and have a meeting with the president of these labels. Like, it's a really exciting time. And I think everybody needs to pay attention, pull their socks up and make sure that this really counts, because depending on how we treat this phase that we're going through now determines whether it's a phase or if it's a rest of our musical career.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really important, and there's no reason why this shouldn't grow and develop into the music scene that developed in the 80s in hip-hop in America.
Absolutely.
Like, there's no reason why. Obviously, we're small, it's not the same, but in terms of building a commercial success and having lots of different streams of that music, black music in all its glory, like you know, grime and garage and R&B and neo soul and hip hop and gangster rap and drill, all of it. It can't just be like, I feel like people have kind of replaced the word urban with Afro bashment or Afro swing, and that's unacceptable. Just for the record, people, folks listening in, like that's not it. Like, and I think just making sure that you've got people that understand that and can, like you said, right, and just be in a room and challenge certain things, that not because those people working in record labels are meaning to overlook it or disregard it, but it's just like, it's not even coming into my head because that's not my experience, it's not my frame of reference. I'm not even thinking to ask those questions or check if that, does that
it's
work?
probably
Is this
also
cool?
an
So,
element of it's always been done this way, and I think that's something that record labels struggled with. Which is why they didn't move when the internet came along. And
because
I think
they're
that's
thinking,
what
if it ain't
people
broke, don't fix it. Let's just hope this goes right back to how it was
and I
before
think
we were
that's
rolling in
what
it. Like,
I think that's what people are struggling with, which is what drives this sort of question, because it's like, okay, so we're in 2018, and if I go to a label, are they still going to be forcing me to do what I'm doing? Well, I think, you know, I think this day and age, and with the new generation, with Generation Zs, millennials, etc., there's this whole thing about, you know, authenticity and being more, everything's all about being more inclusive and, you know, but it's just making sure that we do it the right way, because I really do hope that, you know, what's happening on the UK music scene continues, but I don't want it to be a situation, like you said, at the moment for me, like everyone sounds the same.
yeah.
And I just
that,
really
like you
want to
said,
promote authenticity and being yourself. Like, you know, if you are yourself, like, you know,
Yeah,
an
I
original
totally
is
agree.
always going to be better than a copy. So it's like,
Absolutely.
why are we all trying? And I think it all comes down to as well, like, it all goes back to money.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they can see that sounds working now. Everyone loves it. It's not even something that I really want to do, but you know, it sells. And that's going right back into the same trap as we were before. So that's what causes a record label, because the artists need to take responsibility as well.
Yep.
I think to an extent, the artists want to put it all on the record label.
That does
but
happen.
if you're going into the record label and this is all you're presenting to them, you're not presenting anything new, anything innovative, then obviously they're all going to think, well, that's what's working. This is what they all want to do. So the next artist that comes in, I want to hear that sound again. So it's down for artists to, you know, step outside of the box and, you know, be authentic to who you are without always trying to be like, you know, almost selling your soul just because you want a bit of money, and we all have to eat. But
I don't know. I'm into not even two minds. I wouldn't totally agree with that, purely because, like, in any music scene, for example, you can look at Brit pop bands like Oasis. Like, there was a certain type of music that was flourishing at a time. So in any scene, you're gonna have a sound that emerges that is popular, and people do mirror it and replicate it. And I don't think that in itself is an issue. Like, I think it's a natural thing to happen. It's like we had a funky house. Like, funky house is popping. And it's not because it sounded the same, but it was the same sound. Yeah. And I listen to funky house now. Do you know what I mean? It was great. And I think it's absolutely fine. And I don't think we should look down on people making that sound. But I do agree that it is being churned out a little too much. And it means that the stars that people are trying to emulate, those people who are copying them, they aren't following their sound and they're not establishing themselves, and they can't set themselves apart, which is an issue just for them. Like, you know, it's a quick burnout, isn't it? But I think it's fine as long as, you know, there's people in those record labels that are also welcoming other sounds in that will move it on. And, you know, it's for producers to encourage that too, and artists to move on. But at the end of the day, like, you want a chance. It's not just about the money. It's like, I want to establish myself. If I've got to make this type of song to get my foot in the door, then I will. I can make that super easy because I can. And people will love it. They'll play it in the clubs and it'll all be great.
And that'll be a step up. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And lots of artists do that. Lots of artists piggyback onto a sound that is popular at the time, and they may go off and make something completely different when their popularity is built and they've got their stripes in that regard. So I don't think it's a problem as such, but it will be if the standard of those songs continue to decline.
Yeah, it's like what True Tiger was saying, which is do what's best for the song.
Yeah.
Rather than... Yeah, for me, it was just basically just saying, don't put it all on the record labels because we all have a role to play in this as well. So
Absolutely.
if all artists are coming with exactly the same sound and then there's an appetite for it, you can't then blame the label when they come back around and say to you, I want you to bring out a record that sounds
but at
similar.
the same time, you can blame the labels because to a certain extent, it's a vicious circle. Isn't
It's
it?
just a balance.
But the fact of the matter is, if, you know, and the scene as it is now, we all know each other. We've all gone to school with each other. We've all gone college, whatever. We're all connected. So if you've made a tune and you've gone to, I don't know, Virgin with it, and it got signed for 100K, I want to go and get my I can make that song. Mine's better than yours, even though you're my brethren, but mine's better than yours. So I'm going to go to Sony. I'm going to say, I've got this tune. I want 120 for it. And because it's performing well enough, it's like, bam, we're going to climb on top of each other. So as much as, like, there's lots of artists that go into record labels all the time and they go, oh, like, this isn't really the sound that we can, you know, see and prove that is doing well. So we're not really going to sign it. So an artist, you can't blame them, a hungry artist that needs to feed their belly.
That's what I'm saying, there's a
coming
catch.
back and going, well, you know what, I can easily make that. That's not a problem. That's not me per se, but I don't mind making a little club banger. A little summer back, I could do that, no problem. And if I'm going to get it signed for 50, whatever, however much, 5K, however much it is, like, I'm obviously going to do that. Like, I will, and I'm not going to feel no way about it.
It's a catch-22 because it's like, you want to stay authentic to your sound, but at the same time, you still need to eat.
But it is. I mean, it's a catch-22.
Question of eating.
It's a catch-22, but also we live in an age where you can put out this like club banger, but also alongside it, put out something that's a bit more authentic to you at the same time. Like, you've got the freedom to do that. You can just chuck it up on YouTube or whatever, or on SoundCloud. So it is a.
What do you think as an artist? Like, how?
I think, like, so for me, when I'm creating, I just create what I love to hear. Like, I like the stuff that's out at the moment, but for me, I would always angle it so it's coming from my perspective in terms of what I write on top of it. So it might have the sound of, like, similar to what's happening now, maybe a bit more forward thinking than that, but for me it's all about the actual song, like what you're actually saying on it. And I think if that's authentic,
the lyrical content, or?
yeah, exactly, the lyrical content, if that's authentic to you as an artist, then how you wrap it into, not rap as in like bars, but how you package that, you know, for me as a business person and an artist, I would want to package it so it has mass exposure for now and beyond, with the caveat that it is my message and it's authentic. Yeah, that's my answer.
It's been a very good discussion. I think it's like we've all had our opinions and
it's good
and forth, and it's good because I feel like it's important not to be biased. and to, you know, come on the show and be like, the answer should be no.
Exactly.
And be like, we said that record labels are no longer relevant and you should believe it too. I think anyone listening would have an opportunity to really like explore the different arguments and really answer the question for themselves. And I think that's what's key as well. It's like never just listening to something and just taking someone else's word for it.
Definitely.
Have an opinion.
Challenge
Challenge it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So we've got some questions. Probably won't do all of them.
Okay.
Gonna start with who has inspired you?
I would say the people that have inspired me most are my parents. They've always been in music, which has helped. So just like my dad's always produced music and he plays bass and like keys and stuff.
Nice.
So I've grown up listening to him, you know, on his MPC, making music, and the music that he listened to and sampled and, you know, used as references. Like I think the music that I know is quite different to
The average.
yeah, like my peers. Like my dad would play like Charles Mingus and Naughty by Nature, and just like like so many different.
Is that
types
when
of
I asked
music.
you about
Yeah,
Heartless and I was like,
yeah, exactly. But I didn't think I knew Heartless Crew. I'm too young. But do you know what I mean? Like I've got like, and from that age, like I've always consumed music like hungrily. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, what else can I hear? What do you know what I mean? And I think that was really cool. And yeah, and my mum, she's always been in the industry. She used to do PR for like De La Soul.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's done really amazing stuff. So just in terms of like, just seeing my parents be very involved and close to really seminal artists and yeah, just amazing stuff. It made me feel like, wow, like I want to be like that. And prior to that, they used to run club nights. So my dad did one with his best friend Blaze called Slow Motion. It was in the 90s where rave music and culture was at its peak. So most of the events were like dance and house and really fast music. So they set up this club called Slow Motion on Shaftesbury Avenue, where all the music was under, I think, 100 beats per minute.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's just a vibe and just like that kind of innovation. And yeah, they were like, not to be biased, but I've heard their friends say it, like at the time they were the coolest guys in London. Like everybody wanted to be at their events, and they did another one called Let Off, and my mum was involved with that and a few more of their friends. An artist called Hassan Hajjaj, who's amazing. He's known as the Andy Warhol of Morocco now. He's amazing.
Nice.
Another friend called Sandy, just a whole crew of them, like, and just the fact that they did that, like, yeah, that night was called Let Off. And you know, one of my favourite stories from that is Diana Ross was in town. And she rolled up to the door like on her diva shit, like, yeah, you better let me in. And
like, no.
they were like, and she was like making all these demands, and the club's ram, like it always is.
Yeah.
And you got Diana Ross outside, and my mum and dad are like, the whole crew were like, should we let her in? Nah. Diana's got to go home. Do you know what I mean? Just that,
Legends.
you know, just being part of the London
Scene.
culture and scene and history. And like even like last year when I was working at Virgin, there's another guy who was working in the Universal building, and he saw me walking down the street with my mum, and he was like, oh my God, like, see that lady that you were walking with, is that your mum? And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh my God, she used to do a club night, right, with like RJ and Blaze and Sandy and Hassan. I was like, yeah, Let Off. And he was like, oh my God, like those are some of the best nights of my life.
Wow.
And it's a small thing, but for people who, you know, I'm one of those people, like I love going out. I love, you know, I'm a girl about town. Like I like being out and about and meeting people. And I think those nights that's where I've met some of my best friends raving and being out. And I think to have those memories now in 20 years, if someone can come up to you and be like, oh shit, is that your mum? Like she used to throw a mad dance every Friday. Like it's really, like for me, I think that's amazing. Like I think that's like, yeah, it makes me feel really proud. And, you know, just doing it for the love of it and being really important in a culture, not because you're recognised on some global scale, but it's just like, you really touch people.
Contributed.
Do you know what I mean? It contributed to a culture and a scene, and, you know, set a path for all of us to come through.
I think it really goes back to everything we've been saying the whole time. It's just try and be authentic.
Yeah.
You don't have to be doing things just because, you know, you're going to get that recognition from everyone, but do something that's true to you and something that you know, this is something that I really value and other people value it too. It doesn't have to have 100,000 hits.
Exactly. It doesn't make it any less good.
Yeah.
It just makes it less seen. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I think people need to find that balance. But yeah, my mum and dad, and also they've just been so supportive of me, and they've literally given
Brilliant.
everything that they could to me and my brother. And yeah, just like, just knowing, just teaching me hard work and like, go for what you want and you can do. I've been grown up to think you can do whatever you want, like you can. And you and not feel like, oh, like I'm not good enough to do this. Like they've just instilled a lot of good values in me, and yeah, I feel like I've come out all right.
Good. I love that was your answer.
That's so
I
dope.
love that was your
I
answer.
brought like they're honestly my idols, and like literally I work on the 4th floor of Warner and my mum's on the 2nd floor now.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh my god, that's so mad. Like, do you hate it? I was like, no, I love it. Like, go home together, walk to work together. So
That's wicked,
it's
man.
lovely. Like, I really appreciate it, and I know that not everyone gets on with their parents and can relate to them so
Sure.
closely. But I can go to them and talk about lots of things, and even being able to talk about like, you know, the trials and tribulations of this industry from a place where it's like, yeah, I went through the same thing when I was, you know what I mean? It's really, I feel really lucky to have parents like that, and they're both like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That is
so
really
I
good.
love them.
That kind of brings me on to the next one, which is, what is your why? You kind of touched on it.
Yeah, I think it's just so important. You know, we haven't got a long history as Black people in the UK, not as long as it feels. Like, you know, my grandparents came here in the 50s and 60s, you know, like, yeah, end of the 50s. And they've gone through so much to let us have the lives that we have, like, and our parents. So our grandparents had a certain set of struggles. They've upped and left gorgeous, you know, in my case, Jamaica and Barbados, to come and set up here because they're trying to provide a better life. And, you know, they were sold all these dreams of the streets are paved with gold, all of that. Do you know what I mean? And they've given up everything. Some of them left kids at home and sent for them later. Like, it's a big, you know, sacrifice that those people made. And, you know, obviously the whole Windrush thing that happened is such a slap in the face to think you know, I came here and I abandoned everything. It wasn't even what you told me it was going to be. And I'm still here. I've made a life for myself, contributed to your economy for all this time and rebuilt your country.
Yep.
And this is how you repay me. Like, I don't exist in this country.
Yep.
I'm going to get deported to what? Like, complete liberty. And so for me, like, you know, just knowing that history, and I think the kind of values that all my grandparents have, to have stuck through that and been so resilient and faced such hardship, and then our parents to go through another set of hardship and, you know, take that battering for us to this generation now, and we have it relatively easy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that those issues don't still exist. I think, you know, the racism, that overt racism that my parents faced and my grandparents faced, we're not on the receiving end of that, but it's covert now, and there's different struggles, and they're not as loud and they're not as obvious. They're not any less hard. They're different. And I think that's really important for me to be involved in something that I, A, love, and also, B, just to make sure that we leave a good mark and contribute to
legacy.
Yeah. And, you know, like on that side of things, because, you know, we've got family that have gone through a lot for us to live the way that we're living.
Exactly.
But also on the flip side, like what I was saying about my parents, like just to contribute to something that you love and leave a legacy, not because I want my name to be talked about for years and years. It's not really that, but just being able to
just
affect change in a scene that means a lot to me. And,
shape culture.
Yeah, and just make sure that the people who deserve to be heard get heard, and the people who should be at the forefront making those decisions and changes, we get there and we're not overlooked anymore, and we have a balance. And I think, yeah, and just make sure that everyone gets uplifted to where they should be, and we change the narrative and, you know, the issues that we are still facing, you know, poverty and disenfranchisement, all those things, just being part of that in any little way that you can in all the different spheres, whether you're in education, in politics, in music, in art, in fashion, all of it. Like, we can all help because we all have different goals and, you know, ambitions for ourselves. And it shouldn't just be, just music. Like, I happen to love music, but equally in the future I see myself doing youth work. Do you know what I mean? And it all feeds into each other.
Sure.
Definitely.
It's like what you said about the girl that wants to be a mathematician. She's not even interested in modelling.
She doesn't care about modelling. She's a model through and through. Like, she's signed now. She models for, like, you know, pretty good brand. She hasn't been doing it for that long, but, you know, it's taken off for her, and it's just like, she doesn't care about it. And it's a beautiful thing, do you know what I mean? It's like, and this doesn't have to be forever. Like, you know, just because you're an artist doesn't mean that's all you are. Like, we're multifaceted beings, and we're good at a lot of stuff. And especially as a Black British person, you're not taught that you can be in all those spaces. It's like, you can be a footballer, you can be a sportsman, you can be a musician, be a video girl. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're made to feel like it's very limited, and it's not. Like, we need people everywhere doing all the things that we all need to do. We need dentists and plumbers and all of that stuff. Like, and we just need to encourage people and not make them feel like they're a failure because they don't fit into those two categories.
I think it's also about changing the narrative as well. I think sometimes within our community we stifle ourselves as well, because we, like, for example, there's loads of people, Black people, who are doing amazing things, but they don't have a voice, and they don't come out. And because I've known people who are like top people in their organizations, and you say to them, why don't you mentor someone that's younger, like, so they know that it's actually possible. And that's one of the things that we really wanted to do with this podcast, was really to shine a spotlight on people like yourselves, and even roles within the creative industries that people are not aware of, because everyone thinks that you have to be a singer, you have to be a producer, but there's so many other roles out there that you can be a part of. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's so important for us to, you know, that's what we want to do with this show. Like, we really want to give everyone a voice, and it's been amazing having you on.
Well, thanks,
been amazing.
guys.
It's been amazing. It's been so informative for us as well.
Good.
It's been so good.
So yeah, so I just think that, you know, this is the whole point of our show, is to give every single person a voice, because no matter how young or how old you are, you have something to say and you have something to contribute. And every single person's completely different, and we're all given a gift. And we just need to be given the right opportunities,
and tools to put it into
to be able to do it.
Absolutely. That's a great place to leave it, I think. Really uplifting. No, it's been really, really good to have you on, and I appreciate you taking the time out on a Monday.
Thanks
when
so
when you've got the great hangover.
No, I'm not hungover. It's just my voice. I'm feeling chipper. It's just the voice letting me down.
No, your voice has been absolutely fine. I'm sure you've projected your voice well.
Stop yodeling. Like, terrible.
So next week, for our in-depth interview, we have Angelina Dove. And Angelina is, what doesn't she do? She's a singer, songwriter. She makes head dresses. She paints. She's like one of the most creative people I know. So I sat down with her and we explore her origin story and how she's got to where she is. And we'll be back next week for another spotlight, another topic, and another guest as usual. But yeah, today's been epic.
I'm loving these conversations. Like, every single person that we've spoken to so far is really, like, every time I've left the room, I thought that was amazing. So I'm learning more by doing this podcast than anything else.
For sure, and I hope you guys are too.
So yeah, guys, just remember to always subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like, we welcome your feedback, so please leave a review, any recommendations that you might have. If there's anyone that you'd like to hear on the show as well, please let us know. Also remember to tell a friend spread the word, because I feel like we're doing amazing things here. Remember, the show is out every Monday, where we have our
in-depth interviews,
and every Wednesday where we do Spotlight, where we allow someone who's up and coming or someone who's in a creative role that you may not be aware of to have a voice and to come and shine a spotlight on what they're doing. So thank you very, very, very much for listening.
Thank you very much. And again, review us on Apple Podcasts, please. 5 stars. Thank you.
Tell a friend, guys. Again, if you are not following us on our socials, please remember to follow us at _the creators on all of the social networks, and we're available on all major podcast platforms as well.
Peace.
See ya.